like to believe the best way to get better at something is to beat your head against it aggressively until it works out. So I took the same approach with Nuzlocking that I took with Dark Souls. Wally! Wally! Stop it! It seemed like a great idea to play another remake of a game I also haven't played in over 20 years. So I threw away any semblance of caution to the wind and went into this game completely blind. I've never played any games in Gens 5 through 7 until more recently on my stream. So all I know about Gen 6 is that there are megas and fairy typing, but that's enough, right? If you stumble across this video, you probably already know the rules for a hardcore Nuzlocke. But just in case, we'll be following the standard rules of permadeath, catch the first encounter on every route, nickname all Pokemon, and whiting out ends the run, as well as hardcore rules of set mode, no overleveling, no items in battle, and no duplicates. Our newest journey into the Hoenn region starts with everyone's favorite pastime, childhood trauma. After finally being let out from the moving van that our mom forgot she shoved us into like a piece of furniture, we head on up to our room to discover that our parents are rich enough to afford that $300 Lapras plush from the Pokémon Center, but yet somehow too cheap to let us use a seatbelt. Rather than rest after our long trip and enjoy our room, we're promptly told to go play outside like a proper kid. So we go meet our new lifelong rival, who I thought had white hair up until now. Is that supposed to be a beanie? Now that we've pretended to make friends, we can finally go outside and touch grass. Our first adventure outside the safety of our new home is met with a feral dog chasing a middle-aged man. So we ditch him and we go home, and thus ends our Pokemon adventure. Actually, I guess we rush to his rescue like the good citizen we are. But first, we need to agonize over the best Pokemon to pick as our companion for hopefully the rest of this run. Picking your starter is an important choice in a Nuzlocke, and even more so when you lack experience, like me. Nah, screw that, I picked a Mudkip, because he's my favorite. Luckily, he's also probably still the best starter. I then used my new Super Soaker to hose down a dog and save the professor. After our amazing heroics and brazen thievery, the professor begrudgingly hands over our first Pokemon. I now have to name my firstborn, but creativity can't always be one's strong suit. I came up with a naming theme in my first Nuzlocke, which I thought was smart and organized. So I decided not to do that this time, since y'all didn't appreciate my bad cooking jokes. So Mudkip got named Jeffrey, even though she's a girl.
I would name my daughter Jeffrey.
With Jeffrey the Mudkip now by our side, we're kicked out of the house and told to go on an adventure to build character. But before we can trailblaze a new path, we head on up to Route 103 to play with our rival Brendan, as the professor asked us to. Despite being worried that Brendan's Trico would suck the life out of my favorite meme with Absorb, the AI honestly throws the fight. I defeat him easily by eating the Kipster repeatedly against his Gecko before returning to the lab to pick up Pokeballs and actually getting this run started. Excited to progress, I don't buy any extra Pokeballs before I run off to get my first encounters. On Route 101, we catch Peter the Zigzagoon. On Route 103, Franklin the Wingull. And on Route 102, we catch Johnny the Poochyena, with the last Pokeball in our inventory. Professional gameplay, by the way. I've noticed in my recent playthroughs, I have terrible luck when it comes to natures or abilities. I'm sure I'll run into issues later, but Poochyena luckily gets a runaway in this run. This means later on we'll have a second Intimidate user. So while I'm not normally a big fan of Mightyena, I think we'll manage something with it. Our critical thinking skills lead us to buy some more balls for later, after almost botching our Poochyena encounter. As I run off to catch more Pokemon, our only father figure in the entire series interrupts us and volunteers our services to a sick boy. While I'm glad we have a present father for once, I'm not sure why he considers us such an expert trainer after 20 minutes. Through our stunning catching knowledge, which definitely wasn't an issue earlier, we helped this lad catch his future Rule 34 Pokemon before parting ways with him and heading to Petalburg Woods. On Route 104, I'm extremely disappointed not to acquire my favorite Pokemon, but instead, we get a Wurmple, who we name Winnipeg. Do people name their kids this? Or is this only a place? I have no idea, but Chad suggested it, and Chad is always based. I fail to chase down trainers before I give up and head on into the woods for some plot events. Most importantly though, we catch a Tailo here, who gets guts and a trash nature. In our first run-in with Team Aqua, we trash his dog with Zigzagoon and get our experience share. I make sure to turn it off often so I don't accidentally overlevel mons, because I could easily see this quality of life feature hurting my Nuzlocke. I remind myself that I am almost 5 minutes into this video and that I'm not writing a novella. So we pick up William the Whismer on Route 116 before hurrying off to the first gym. I look up the level cap since I haven't played these games before, and then level up Jeffrey on trainers until we're ready to fight fight Roxanne. I'm solidly confused that she only has 2 Pokemon and a cap of 14, instead of 3 with a cap of 15, like an Emerald. I guess this is part of the era where Game Freak decided that all the adults had quit and started making their games easier. You know, because back in my day, they didn't hold your hand like this. So I sweep this gym with just my starter and some squirts of water before heading off to more plot. We go to retrieve the Devon goods, rescue a Winkle for an old man, and then head off into the horizon towards the next gym. Before we leave the mainland though, we pick up some necessary things like a miracle seed in the woods. Once we get to Dewford Town, an incredibly nice fisher gives us our first ride. So we pick up our next encounter of a Magikarp we named Susan, similar to the Five Nights at Freddy's character. I train my Pokemon in the gym and outside on Route 106. There's one more encounter before the gym leader we pick up in Granite Cave of a Zubat we name after a viewer. After my momentary lapse of judgment trying to utilize the experience share as Game Freak intended, I go back to my cheating ways and
take the rare candy pill.
I get a small gift from my grandfather, PK Hex, who works in Nintendo, of 999 rare candies. And then we level up to the next level cap. I admit, I underutilized Talo here and offer the me in the future some advice.
You should go back to the Petalburg Woods and get Talo poisoned if you're lucky enough to get good.
So instead of one-shotting Brawly's first Pokemon, we put him into the red twice. But I guess it doesn't matter because this game is easy, and Talo kills his whole team without taking a lick of damage. Brawly should stop skipping Arm Day for sure. With 2 badges now in hand, we run back to the cave to talk to Steven to progress the plot. I ponder briefly over how scary Mega Metagross might be, and then cross the ocean to arrive in Slateport City. We do some important things like steal sand from kids, and try to kidnap an old man's Pokemon. Take note, as a grunt, you only have the authority to steal from children and old people. What? We can't steal from other people? We can only steal from children and old people. What? Before picking up Tristan the Electrike on Route 110. There's some more plot in the museum where we deliver the Devon goods and I question why all of Team Aqua has a gamer slouch. I then momentarily get distracted by Pokemon contests, which is a feature I never enjoyed, in order to pick up a free Pikachu for later. It's time for our first real rival fight, who has hopefully caught more than just his starter by now. I've never played this game and it's been years since I played Emerald, so I don't know what to expect from his team. To my surprise, he leads with Since I didn't know his lead, I quickly switched to Marshtomp and ended this mystery Pokemon with 2 water guns. I will admit, I did not level up for this fight, but Talo survives 2 attacks before getting off a huge wing attack. I then switched into Dustox and finished Grovyle off. On his final Pokemon, Wailmer, I try to switch into my Electrike. After a crit, that plan is quickly scrapped, and I switch back into my Marshtomp to Rock Tomb it to death. I make some mental notes about, keeping to level cap and having better answers for his team. We've now arrived in the redesigned Mauville City. I then run around a bunch in the new locale, seeing the sights and getting lost since I'm incapable of reading maps. I go and trounce Wally, who really thought he was ready for a gym with a single level 17 Ralts. While I could go pick up some quick encounters, I opt not to and just level up my Pokemon before starting the next gym. I figure with Marshtomp there's little we'll struggle with in this gym, so I slap the soft sand on it and get to work. I lead with the Mud Shot and then just do the same thing I did on the last 2 gyms, and sweep with my lead Pokemon. Mudkip as a starter must have been the right call, since it single-handedly beats 2 out of the first 3 gyms, and is also great for the 4th. With a very chill time nabbing our first 3 badges, I go run into some optional trainers on accident, and pick up a few more encounters. We pick up a Volbeat named Bob on Route 117, and a Geodude named George in Rust Turf Tunnel, thanks to Rock Smash. I have no idea how to utilize Volbeat outside of VGC as a weather setter, so this book gets no usage on our run, but Geodude does see some future use. After this small detour, we head north to pick up even more encounters on our way to the 4th gym. The 4th gym is realistically quite far from Mauville, so it takes me 2 hours to even get to the town. I'm a slow player, I guess, so no speedrunning awards for me anytime soon. On way to Meteor Falls to harass a criminal organization, we pick up Geraldine the Nummel, Redacted the Grimer, Mr. Wick the Sandshrew, and Sneck the Survivor. I decide to skip the Meteor Falls encounter until later and try for a Bagon. I remark on all the glorious holes outside before we head into the cave to create some new holes and some Aqua grunts. Holes are goals after all, so I'm sure they'll appreciate having even more. With the help of our rival Brendan, we get dragged into a double battle against the super hot Admin Shelly. When it comes to double battles against 2 trainers, I typically like to focus down one trainer first so that it becomes an easy 2v1. I focus down the Grunt since he only has 1 Pokemon, while the Admin has 2. Linoon gets a Stab, Covet, and Headbutt off on the Grimer to secure the kill, before we switch focus to Shelly. I didn't want to risk being poisoned later by the Grimer, and having to make switches I don't want. Linoon then gets a Headbutt flinch into Mightyena, before a second Headbutt and a bit of assistance from from Brendan's questionable Pokemon secures the kill. Shelly sends out Carvana, and Brendan sadly loses a Pokemon in his Nuzlocke run. Again. I'm not sure this run is going very well for him. Or maybe he's cheating. Lyoun almost finishes this fish off with a pin missile before Brendan tries to take all the credit for himself by outspeeding us for the kill. 3D Pokemon is cool and all, but I'm definitely a bigger fan of the 2D generations of Pokemon. Wrinkles look super weird on the chibi characters of this game, and games like BDSP. We get dragged around a bit before rushing off to Mount Chimney to... Honestly, I don't know much about the plot since I'm not reading the dialogue. Obviously, I'm here to cosplay as a superhero as far as I'm concerned. After another uneventful battle against Shelly, we finally face off against the pirate captain himself. I lead with Manectric here because I initially expected a Golbat lead, but this isn't Team Rocket, and Team Aqua actually leads with Mightyena in most cases. Manectric gets off a Thunderfang before being roared out for an easy switch into my own Mightyena. I spam Rock Smash until I win the dogfight, and get one Rock Smash on Sharpedo before I decide to swap out. It doesn't do very impactful damage after all. I switch Lyoun in to get an easy Pin Missile KO, and get a Covet off on Golbat before I decide to switch again to Manectric for a one-shot Thunderfang. One of the things I would like to do in future Nuzlockes is be more decisive. You'll notice a lot of times I attack once and then switch instead of just switching right away because I don't know my damage rolls very well. Every playthrough is a learning experience though, and it can only get better from here, hopefully. We then head down Jagged Pass and pick up a Spoink we name after a viewer, spend our life savings on milk to give to our dad later, and finally prepare our team for Flannery's gym. In semi-typical fashion, I forget to level up before starting this fight. At least my party is in the correct order and has equipped items though. Sandslash almost single-handedly sweeps this gym in typical baby game gym fashion, though I regret not putting the soft sand onto him to make it even easier. He also one-shots a Pokemon I've forgotten the name of, ends Torkoal's Reign of Terror with some magnitude gambles, and then gets a Sand Tomb onto Numble, which almost kills. Because Torkoal had managed to get Sunny Day off, a Lava Plume from Numble did a lot of damage to our shrew. So on the healing turn, I switched into Pelipper, managed to stall out the sun, and one-shot with a Water Pulse. As I celebrate on my way out, I get jump scared by the rival before he drags us off to Petalburg. Honestly, maybe this game is a good speedrunning game since the plot events just teleport you around into the next place you need to go. I guess we'll never get our 10,000 steps in today. Since he plops you right at the 5th gym, we start building a new team. Being at the midway point now of the run, I expect a bit more difficulty from the next 2 gyms. So I take things a bit more seriously and decide to strategize. My team at this gym consists of Mightyena, Gyarados, Lyoun, Pelipper, Marshtomp, and Graveler. Between Mightyena and Gyarados, we'll be able to Intimidate Cycle to reduce attack easily. Pelipper seems like a safe pick already, having Protect and being quite bulky. And Graveler is a great wall and can go boom if we panic. We put our first plan into motion here to Intimidate Cycle between Mightyena and Gyarados until the first slacking is down to -3 attack. Initially, I figured that should be enough and get a Rock Smash defense drop, with the intent to just spam the move to kill. This is a slacking with Yawn though, so I swap out after the Yawn back to Gyarados and just attack until I get Yawn before swapping back to my other Intimidator. Between these two, Yawn spam and Truant turns, it leads to an easy first kill. We essentially do the same thing on Vigoroth, except it's a bit scarier since he doesn't need Truant. Gyarados receives an unlucky crit here that puts it into the yellow, which might make him risky to use later. I'll call myself out at this point and admit I make an error that almost leads to our first death of the run. After finishing off the Vigoroth, I want to swap here and start getting more attack downs on this slacking as well. The optimal move would have been to switch to Graveler for the resistance, but I switched to Pelipper. Oh, that's wild actually. Oh god. Oh my god! Oh my god! Only for him to receive a huge revenge retaliate that brings him down to 7 HP. Why does this happen? Well, it has to do with reading how skills work, which I tend not to do often enough. Between it being a stab move, it also doubles in power the turn after a Pokemon faints. It's almost like the name might mean something. This slacking doesn't Yawn, so we learn to be a bit smarter and switch into Graveler for active turns and use an Intimidator on Truant turns until he's down to -6 attack. Now that we finally feel more safe, we bulldoze with Graveler until he faints to finish off this gym. This remake had seemed a lot easier so far, but Norman is just as scary as I remember. Our dad begrudgingly hands over our 5th badge before Golden Boy Wally teleports us off again to Mauville City. The least he could have done for us is heal our Pokemon since our dad likes him more than us. Still, even then interrupts our journey and lets us be kidnapped by Latios. We then beat up some more Aqua grunts, and the game tries to trivialize our run by giving us a free mythical with a Mega Stone. I shame this perverted Pokemon that kissed Ash to the PC and pretend this event didn't happen. More importantly, we unlock Mega Evolutions here, which I can't utilize for now because I don't have the right stones for my current Pokemon. I catch a tentacle we name Squidward, and then we head off to stop more crime. As usual, I go into a huge tangent about MMOs during this portion of the stream, but nothing really important happens here as I steamroll through some grunts. Shelly shows up once again, only this time she seems to be missing her furry companion. I guess we put down her dog last time we saw her. I used my safety strategy of Intimidate cycling before switching into Manectric for a one-hit KO. It's potentially overkill, but I'm terrified after almost sending Franklin to the farm upstate. After saving the day once again, we get a free cast form we name Steve. I shuffle around my equipped items a bit and give Gyarados the Rocky Helmet for future Intimidate switch-ins, because it has the higher defense between it and Mightyena. As we head to Fort Tree, we run into Brendan again, who still hasn't added any Pokemon to his team. I literally just one-shot everything here. I'm a bit disappointed that all Brendan fights are so forgettable in the remake. We pick up a Gloom we named Gertrude, and a Kecleon we named Kelvin, before we pick up the Devon Scope from Steven to gain access to the next gym. After what happened with Gym 5, I'm even more careful while building my team of Manectric, Gyarados, Marshtomp, Mightyena, Graveler, and Camerupt. It's literally just a bunch of Mons with good typing, and my Intimidate cyclers though. I lead with Manectric to one-shot the enemy Swallow, and then Volt Switch for some chip damage onto the Altaria, expecting to be faster. Predicting the Earthquake, we switch into Gyarados to dodge it, and finish it with an Ice Fang. Manectric is switched back in since we resist all of Pelipper's moves, and we clean it up with another one-shot discharge. Since Manectric has Overheat, I try to get the move off on Skarmory, but since the move has 90 accuracy, it may as well be 50-50, and I miss. After a sand attack from the bird, I'm frustrated and switched to Camerupt to secure the badge with a Lava Plume. Luckily, the 6th gym isn't as scary as it might have been in Emerald. We go to pick up some more encounters of a Shuppet we named Stewie and a Duskull we named Dustin before heading to the top of Mount Pyre to cause some more trouble for Admin Matt. There's a forgettable fight here where Manectric procs Quick Claw to one-shot his shark with Discharge. We do some robbing of TMs and another Mega Stone in front of some old people grieving their deceased Pokemon before we scuttle back to Lily Cove for our last Brendan fight. Brendan finally figures out he can have more than 3 Pokemon, though it makes no difference. Manectric Volt Switch kills the Swallow, and we bring out Swampert, who I'm now abusing the Mega Stone of. Megas are super cool, but this is probably why people usually limit them in their Nuzlocks. I just didn't know better and was having fun frankly as a newcomer to Gen 6. My Mega Swampert gets 2 Rock Slide flinches on his Wailord before finishing it off with a 3rd. There was likely a better play here, but gambling with flinch chance is fun. What can I say? Brendan brings out his starter and I switch into Swallow as he throws with Detect. We click Fly for an easy one-shot, and he brings out his last Pokemon. I have some concerns over a Rock Slide, so I switch back to Swampert to finish the slug with a Surf. Now that our rival is out of the way, I take the advice of all the best Nuzlockers that I know, and buy the TM Protect. While I do look at the other TMs, nothing catches my eye, and Protect is just great for anyone in a Nuzlocke. I think it's good as well in a run like this where I'm going through it mostly blind, since it then allows me to test what move the AI will pick. The only real disadvantage would be if the enemy starts to set up. I teach it to Gyarados, Mightyena, and Manectric, though Swampert already knows it. I forget how to progress the plot and have to look it up since I'm blocked from entering the hideout. Thanks to my search engine of choice, we track down Archie and attempt to chase him down, but he gets away for plot reasons. Now that we can actually enter the hideout, I'm impressed with the new 3D location and proceed to get lost in here as well. I try to reject reality, but I pretty much run into every trainer possible until I make it to the Master Ball location. We catch an Electrode here that we name Eric, and then waddle off to battle Admin Matt again. This battle is super exciting, and we have a minor crit scare on Manectric before one-shotting the Sharpedo. I seem to have noticed that these sharks kind of really hurt and kind of crit a lot. Team Aqua scurries off after their sound defeat, and we head off to Moss Deep to challenge the next gym. Because Tate and Liza are a bit of a pushover in this game with only 1 Pokemon each in a double battle, I don't give my team nearly as much consideration as the last 2 gyms. I lead with Gyarados and Swampert here. Protect with Gyarados to avoid the self-hit, and Surf with my Mega Swampert to easily one-turn this gym. Actually, I don't, because Soul Rock hangs on with Red Health. The twins annoy me by spamming heals, and I fail to clean up quickly. I eventually switch Swampert out to Mightyena with the intent to double crunch before Gyarados finishes it off. With another victory under our belt, it's time to return to what we're really here for, the story. At least, that's what it feels like with how short gym battles are. Now that we have the HM dive, we skip out on getting our scuba certification to go chase down Team Aqua again, this time on the seafloor and cavern. We pick up some useful things in typical exploration fashion before walking in on... I feel like I walked into a really weird kink roleplay and I did not want to be involved in this. Why am I here? Archie, who is utterly embarrassed, challenged us to his final battle. In the lazy fashion that I started playing after getting Swampert, I Mega Evolve him and send it. He defeats Archie's first 2 Pokemon with Earthquakes, and then hits level cap for the next gym. I switch in Manectric and get punished heavily, bringing him down to red HP. And he doesn't even one-shot the Crobat. I bring out my Mighty Anna for the resist again against Poison Fang, and finish it with a Crunch. I become extremely worried about his last Pokemon, Sharpedo. This will be the first time an enemy Mega Evolves a Pokemon. I swap out to Gyarados to get an Intimidate off on this beast before he Mega Evolves. Gyarados gets crit by Slash. And then, the incident happens. Our Gyarados, Susan, dies to a strong jaw, stab-boosted crunch. She dies in the bite of 24. She was the first. Her death, but a simple, childish mistake of staying too long. I hadn't even known it at the time when I named her, but I must have cursed her to be the first death all those hours ago. Losing Gyarados was deeply disappointing, as it had been a staple of my team ever since I evolved it. I could have saved her if only I had not played greedy and played around the crit. After her defeat, I switch into Swampert, who easily one-shots the Terror with a single Earthquake. Tears still in our eyes from the death of Susan. We watch as Archie awakens Kyogre from Grayscale and fails to have enough gym badges to control the Primal. We pick up a Chinchou that we name Luke before running off to Sootopolis City to reach the story's epic conclusion. We arrive in the pouring rain to wind up face to face with Susan's killer. Archie tries to make amends by handing over an Aqua suit to replace our diver, and while we might forgive him for his apology, we'll never forget. In the Cave of Origin, we pick up a Sableye named Golem that we can potentially use later, and make our way to the depths of the earth. Using my diving certification we bought off Temu, we mount the wild Kyogre and ride down to the center of the earth. In this cutscene that makes me think Kyogre is a small little guy. Seriously, why is he so small compared to our character? Or maybe we're giants. We arrive in this area that looks like Area 0. We then enter into a fierce battle to save the world from the out-of-control legend. Actually, we just throw the Master Ball. This is a Nuzlocke. Who has time to waste on a Pokemon we can't even use? We name Kyogre Will, and our mission to protect the Spheals is concluded. No longer will Spheals have to hide in Shoal Cave, waking in fear of being eaten by this whale. In the now sunny Sootopolis, we pick up the Mega Stone for Sableye, that we can make use of later. There's a few encounters to grab before this gym, but we'll start off by going to pick up the Eviolite at the fishing house. I don't know if this locks you out of the Gyarados Mega Stone, but it's not like we can use it anymore. In the pond outside, we catch a Surskit we named Susan II, forever in loving memory. We clean up encounters in this section by picking up the claw fossil in the desert that we revive for an unnamed Anorath, a Baltoy named Bradley, a Wailmer named Karen, and a Magnemite named Marco. Master puzzle solvers we are, we make it through to the gym leader and dodge all the trainers. I redo my team for this gym and bring far too many electric types, and only one grass type in Vileplume. I lead with Electrode in order to set up Light Screen, before destroying the Love Disc with an Electro Ball. Whiscash is brought out. We resist the oncoming Earthquake by switching to Vileplume. I expect to be slower, so I waste a turn on Moonlight before we suck the life out of this fish with Giga Drain. My Logic comes out next due to having Ice Beam. I bring in Magnezone for the resist, only to get frozen immediately. I try to bring out Electrode next, who takes a huge hit from Hydro Pump. We do some switch spamming here to burn PP before finally bringing out Lantern. Lantern spams Discharge until it wins the lottery with the Para. Now we finally have a chance to outdamage this tank through recovery spam. Lantern finishes off this gym by shocking Milotic, Celio, and Seaking to secure our final badge. It was time to make our way into the endgame and do our final preparations for the Elite Four. Now that we had Waterfall, we finally made our way back to Meteor Falls to catch a Bagon that we named Jeremy. And we also took a detour to Shoal Cave for a Celio we named Brian Sr. Both of these made it onto our eventual team later. But for now, we finished up with picking up the TMs for Ice Beam as well as Brick Break, before spending an incredibly long time trying to get my Swellow burned in double battles. Maybe I should have have just gone with poison like I told myself earlier. The team was built and everyone was leveled up to 50 before heading to the gauntlet that is Victory Road. After bumbling our way through the cave system and picking up a Medicham we named Jimmy, we faced off against that boy our dad likes more than us one final time. The team we built earlier for this section consisted of Swampert, Sableye, Walrein, Camerupt, Swellow, and Linoon. Linoon was simply there to be our HM user, but everyone else on the team was a powerhouse in their own right. I had made plenty of mistakes regarding the teams the trainers in this game had, as well as their move pool so far, but had crafted this team solely for this fight. Starting out strong, Walrein gets a one-shot against the enemy Altaria. We switch into Camerupt against Roselia, who also gets one shot with Lava Plume, but not before getting slightly stalled out. The Flower Girl sets up with a Leech Seed and Toxic on Camerupt, which would make his time in this battle a ticking clock. We get a lucky burn with Lava Plume, which between Sturdy and Leech Seed recovery, we don't take down the Magneton. We go for a pivot to stall out until burn kills and send in Sableye, who eats a Flash Cannon. Sableye eats a massive hit, and despite it being a bit spooky, falls within plans. Burn finishes off the Magneton and Wally sends out Delcatty. We bring out Swampert and kill it with 2 waterfalls. Initially, going into this run I had expected Wally to evolve his Ralts into a Gardevoir, which would have been far scarier to me, but he had a Glade instead as his final Pokemon. Now the reason we hadn't Mega Evolved Swampert like usual was in preparation for the fight against this Pokemon. We switch into Sableye to bring down his final member. Sableye was brought specifically to counter Glade because if you look at his move pool, there isn't a single attack that can hit this Cave Dweller with his Dark Ghost typing, making him the perfect counter. We Mega Evolve Sableye and send this boy back home with 2 Shadow Balls. We swap out Swellow, Sableye, and Linoon for Salamence, Armaldo, and Dusclops. Chat convinces me to take Swellow off the team and replace it with Salamence after the effort we went into getting it. And I agree, since I think having a strong Intimidator will be good. We plop the Eviolite we picked up earlier predictably onto Dusclops. Now, I have to ask myself, why are all the good ghost Pokemon I bring to the Elite Four trait evolutions? While I feel comfortable putting rare candies into my game for time savings, I didn't want to cheat evolve these Pokemon. If you're watching this video, be sure to share your thoughts on trait evolutions in the comments below. As I start getting into harder games, it would be great to know how to optimize my rule set. We throw our Smarty Pants glasses on and head on into the Elite Four. Honestly, I admit I just want to look like Yawn, even if I use a Vtuber model. The first fight in the Elite Four starts with Dark Pokemon Trainer Sydney. Knowing he leads with the Mightyena with Intimidate, we opt to pivot at the start. We lead with our Salamence in order to get an Intimidate off onto his Mightyena, as well as make a safe entry for our Armaldo, who won't have an attack down now. Armaldo switches into a Swagger though, gets Sucker Punched his next turn, and hits himself in confusion. I had brought the Fossil to the Elite Four pretty much solely for this fight, and had rendered him useless already. I go with the tried and true strategy of making this game too easy, and switch into Swampert before Mega Evolving him. Swampert puts down the dog with a single Earthquake despite all the floundering at the beginning. Shiftry is baited out next, and we switch Camerupt into the Fake Out. Since he's slower, he doesn't take a Leaf Blade very well, which procs his Citrus Berry, before killing it with a Flamethrower. Torpedo comes out next, seeing the super effective Aqua Jet as a kill against Camerupt. We switch into Salamence here to get an Intimidate off before killing it with a Dragon Claw. Okay, maybe chat was right about this Pokemon being strong even without his Mega Stone. We have a repeat event with Dragon Claw against Absol, and finish off his last Pokemon, Cacturn, with a Fly. The second Elite Four member is Phoebe, with her Ghost team. In typical Sylvie fashion, I forget to level up to the new cap of 53. If I were to do this run again, I think it might be better not to have to level up in between every Elite Four member. We lead this fight as well with our Salamence, with the aim to kill as many ghosts as possible with Crunch. Salamence crunches the enemy Dusclops, who finishes itself off with the move Curse. Phoebe brings out her signature Pokemon Dusknoir next. I click Crunch again before Salamence, it is a problem. It just didn't have Ice Punch! I didn't falls to an Ice Punch. Yes, you heard right. I don't check the move pool of the ghost to see why she brought it in next. And I don't think to switch out Declare Curse. We lose our second Pokemon in the run to none other than the hubris of thinking I could sweep with Crunch, which isn't even strong enough to one-shot. Shaken by my utter stupidity, I again default to everyone's favorite starter. The fight goes rather predictably after this. Swampert Mega Evolves before finishing her ghost off with a Rock Slide. Waterfall fails to break through Sableye's invisible Focus Sash, and takes a huge foul play to bring him down to 100 HP. Swampert burns through all of Phoebe's full restores before finishing this fight with Waterfall spam. Well, now that we don't have Salamence anymore, I guess he's not in danger of the third Elite Four member Glacia and her super effective Ice Pokemon. We lead with Camerupt here against Glalie, who puts up a light screen making it impossible for Flamethrower to even two-shot it. We stall out the screen turn with Protect, before using another Flamethrower which kills it after a lucky burn proc. She brings out her Walrein next, who I blank out on and forget is weak to Rock, and thus waste a lot of turns getting nothing done. My own Walrein comes out, who, while great at taking attacks, has no real way to damage the enemy. After briefly questioning my own judgment, I switch to Dusclops and stall one turn with Protect. Dusclops uses Will-O-Wisp and Hex to bring the Walrus down into red health. We use the heal turn to bring out the puzzle piece that trivializes every fight. Swampert. Swampert, the absolute goat, gets a Rock Slide flinch before finishing it off with a second Rock Slide. Swampert brings down both her Frostlasses with Rock Slide, and while he could probably finish off her final Pokemon here, I switch back to Camera Up because I don't want Swampert to take a Freeze Dry. Freeze Dry crits and procs our Citrus Berry, but we defeat Glalie next turn with a Flamethrower. There are two great answers here on my team for the final Elite Four member Drake and his Dragon Pokemon, in both Walrein and Swampert, who both have Ice Beam. But wait, Swampert doesn't have Ice Beam. Well, before this battle started, we swapped our Rock Slide on Swampert for Ice Beam. I do love our TMs are reusable in this generation. I have abused Swampert much of this playthrough. I try to avoid it sometimes, so I lead with Walrein here, like I had against Wally earlier, and we defeat Altaria with a one-shot Ice Beam. Flygon comes out next and I try to hit it, but the NPC is never punished and gets a Supersonic off that causes my Walrein to hit itself. So anyway, I lie to you all and switch to Swampert anyway, who proceeds to sweep the rest of the team. Yeah, extremely dramatic fight, right? The Elite Four conquered through my exceptional prowess of sending in Swampert and Mega Evolving. It's time to prove we actually have some skills now, at least against Champion Steven. Camerupt is our first choice here to lead the battle, who I had hoped for an easy kill against Skarmory with, but it has Sturdy of course. We blowtorch the bird down until it dies, but not before it poisons Camerupt. We play the risky game and stay in to get an Earth Power off on Aggron, who, oh my god, wow, surprise, also has Sturdy. We had taken super effective damage from his Earthquake, but thanks to Citrus Berry, we can stay in another turn to finish the job. With Camerupt severely weakened, but job complete, we switch into Dusclops against the Claydol. We go for the Burn with Will-O-Wisp and Hex strat again to get him down into red. This causes Steven to use a full restore, and we have to repeat the process again. Now, Claydol had been a bit of a menace and put Reflect up before it died, so I stalled out a turn with Protect before I brought in Armaldo against his Cradily to redeem himself from the Sydney fight. Well, he doesn't redeem himself. In a show of deja vu, Armaldo gets confused again and hits himself. Now, they always say, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, and now we need to send a message to the rest of the team for disorderly behavior. We sack him. If he's not going to manage to kill anything, we may as well use him to bring in someone else safely. He manages to get a single X Scissor off, which fails to kill, before falling to Cradily. But I guess he did some damage at least. As this run has always gone, and will continue to go, we bring out Swampert a final time to finish the fight and sweep the last 3 Pokemon. Okay, I think I understand why some people limit how often they Mega Evolve in this game now. But we can now walk in and register our champion team, plus 2 failures. Okay, maybe not failures, it's my own fault for piloting them poorly. Now, you might think, well, I can stop watching now because the run is over, right? And you would technically be right. But apparently there's a bonus fight at the end of the credits against none other than Brendan. Since a Nuzlocke wouldn't normally include this fight, I opt to do the thing I know best and like the most. Gambling with Fissure. Like Fissure, you know what, you're right. Ooh. I will not be denied my Fissure finale. Thank you. Anyway, if you liked this video, thanks for watching. I'm already working on my next Nuzlocke, so if you want to see the video for that, be sure to subscribe and catch it when it releases.